without a fight.
It doesn't have to be this way.
Grow up, John, and join the real world. In the real world, we're violent, self-centered jerks.
The real world is dead. Long live American Idol! And we've been given the chance to remake it.
Bill's right. We can talk endlessly about doing right, but it's still a matter of survival. Us versus them. And I'm telling you, it's not that black and white. Give sanctions more time! We have to learn to live with them, just like they had to learn to live with us. Isn't this meeting about how they aren't learning to live with you? Anyway, Superman's arrival causes the discussion to be tabled so they can all welcome him back.
Instead, the welcome gives me one of the gifts of my newfound vulnerability, an anxiety attack.
Let me get this straight. Superman's invulnerability was the only thing keeping him from panicking in crowds? Superman's latent insanity strikes again. I love this. The end of the world made the Joker sane, but drove Superman bonkers.
You can't trust anyone, Clark, least of all yourself. Yep, you better start setting fire to things.
We were the only ones who ever really loved you, Clark.
We're your family, Clark.
These people are the ghosts, not us. We're reality. Our giant, haunting, semi-transparent faces are reality. By the way, Lois, you were the one who told him to go look for people, so what the hell? Clark runs and discovers Matrix, a.k.a. Supergirl.
Time for backstory!
Back in the early 90s, the writers wanted to bring back Supergirl, who died in Crisis on Infinite Earths in 1985. DC policy at the time was that Superman was the only survivor of Krypton, so they got around it by having this being, Matrix, assume the body and form of a human girl named Linda Danvers, who in turn became Supergirl. Clark loudly proclaims to Matrix that
we're family!
We're family. Matrix is playing with Mr. Miracle and Big Barda's children, and wait, what? Okay, they don't have kids in regular continuity, so the implication here is that they had kids during their time in the village. However, all the narration has implied that at most a year or so has passed since the apocalypse. If it's been several years, why the hell was Clark's beard so small? He said earlier that he hadn't had a chance to shave at all until then, so if it had been years, his beard would have been much longer. Furthermore, does that mean Billy Batson has actually grown into his current appearance? Or was he Captain Marvel at the time he lost his powers and thus stuck in an adult body? And again, how exactly did he lose his powers? They were completely magic! Now we get to see how it's even worse for poor Billy, who holds Wonder Woman as if they were a couple, but she shoved him off, saying that they're not together anymore. Okay, this just raises a ton of questions. When were they a couple? If he was stuck in Captain Marvel from when he lost his powers, then he should have retained his more adult, heroic attitude, and I can see Diana getting together with him, but given her facial expression and what she said, it clearly ended very bitterly. Except I can't imagine what circumstances would then lead to them breaking up. Not to mention, never in comics have I ever seen the implication of any romantic interest between the two. As redundantly stupid as it is in Elseworld stories, there has at least been a few stories talking about Wendy and Supes getting together. It's not often, and nothing ever actually happens in it, but at least there's something. It's like the writer decided that he wanted a love triangle and just resorted to lazy writing. A lot of bad writers define characters solely by their powers. Superman and Wonder Woman especially. That's why we have a lot of Elseworld stories about Superman and Wonder Woman getting together. World's Strongest Man and World's Strongest Woman. But who could be involved in this love triangle? Why, how about Captain Marvel, who is arguably just as strong as Superman? No, we wouldn't want any members of Wendy's supporting cast. They're not super strong. There is no other reason why Captain Marvel is in this story. And in case you thought I was exaggerating, Diana immediately goes over to Clark after shoving Billy aside and grabs his arm like she was his date at a red carpet event. We get another montage, this time showing Jean and Billy organizing peace with the mutants, despite Billy earlier being against peace with the mutants. The Joker working on building an electrical generator. Shouldn't his newfound sanity hit him with suicidal guilt over all the pain and suffering he's caused? And Superman standing with Wonder Woman on a cliff like this was a superhero rendition of Pocahontas.
And if you look over there, honey, you'll see the giant hallucination of my dead wife.
And now we start really getting into the pure silliness and stupidity. In a mere 2 years' time, the village, now named Champion for some reason, has been enhanced to the point where they have electricity, plastic outer walls for their dome-shaped buildings, and futuristic manufacturing techniques and designs. Look, the first half of this book wasn't too bad, but it's right here where any suspension of disbelief we have for this premise is now officially broken. I've read some reviews for this book that say that they absolutely loved the post-apocalyptic premise of this story. Except what's the point of having it be post-apocalyptic if they're now living in a futuristic city? Anyway, Wendy and Stoops are now a couple, raising the ire of Billy Batson. I knew it! The old ways were bad enough. Superman, Superman, Superman. Okay, what the hell? He was jealous of Superman before the apocalypse? This is bullcrap. Captain Marvel was kind, sweet, and didn't care about who was more popular. It's especially telling how ridiculous this is, since Billy's powers come from uttering the word Shazam, both the name of the wizard who granted him his abilities, as well as an acronym for the various gods and people that his abilities are derived from. First and foremost, there is S for Solomon, as in he was granted the wisdom of Solomon. This comic is telling us that the wisdom of Solomon had to be completely and utterly jealous of Superman. Now, even without my powers, he still gets everything I want. He was always number one, and I was always a distant number two. I'll say one thing, this comic is indeed number two. For no real reason, Billy just yells out Shazam and is restored as Captain Marvel. Okay, that confirms that he is indeed Billy Batson, and this has been years, and oh dear God, I'm trying to untangle this comic's bizarre sense of time again, aren't I? With enough power to kick Kent clear back to what's left of Metropolis. Okay, I could maybe buy that Billy Batson was jealous of Superman to an extent. I mean, he's only human. But now that he's in Captain Marvel form, I would have expected him to be a little better. And I know some of you more well-versed in comics might bring up one of the really good Elseworld comics, particularly Kingdom Come, where Captain Marvel and Superman do fight, and Marvel isn't playing a hero when they fight. The difference is that in that book, Billy Batson underwent years of brainwashing and psychological torture to get him to that point. This is saying he wants to fight because he's an asshole. What a load. As if in answer to this nonsense, his powers just suddenly are taken away for no reason. After Billy mopes some more about his lost powers, Clark and Diana get married, saying they were meant to be together. Yeah, and I'm sure now Diana's going to try suicide while pregnant with Clark's kid. Why not? It worked like that, an act of God. And Clark writes in his journal that nightly there are thunderstorms that seem to slowly return their powers. Let me try to explain something. There are two kinds of magic in the world. Magic as a force that can grant the wondrous, and then there's narrative magic. The kind where we get the classic phrase, it's magic, we don't have to explain it. This is narrative magic. It's lazy. Why are all the superheroes getting their powers back? Wizards. We never get a real explanation for it. Just a vague idea that Billy calling down the lightning every night is somehow responsible, which doesn't even begin to make sense. Anyway, time passes, Clark and Diana have a kid that they name Bruce. Even after all these years, Clark can't just get over his BFF. And Billy plots to take down Superman. What's worse, he plans to, you guessed it, take over the world. Of course! It's amazing how quickly this comic evolved from a story about Superman alone after the apocalypse to Captain Marvel insanely ranting to himself. And I think it's only appropriate that we bring out the Superboy Prime voice for this.
I will lead my people back to the way of our true destiny, to inherit the earth, and master it in dominion. And I will lead that conquest with Diana at my side.
You know, comics, there are some steps in between jealous of someone and megalomania. At a later council meeting, we learned that the weather is increasingly growing worse as a result of Captain Marvel's efforts, making all of this even more ridiculous. Captain Cuckoo encourages others to join him in rejecting humanity.
Look where it got us! Reduced to savagery! Fighting amongst ourselves over whether the human race is even worthy of our attention!
Savagery? You've got a futuristic city! Or did Superman just make up those new clothes of his with super sewing abilities? Furthermore, are they implying that Champion only has metahumans and superheroes in it? Because that would be a whole new layer of dumb that was never stated. Anyway, Captain Marvel leads out his band of idiots, nearly half the city's population.